This is a deeper listen from KEXP. And for these next 2 episodes of the podcast, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to be focusing on Seattle musicians and their day jobs. And today, we're meeting Lupe Flores of the band Wild Powwers. She's also co-owner of Lupe's Situ Tacos, a restaurant in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood. KEXP's Martin Douglas caught up with her last fall to hear how cooking and music came to be parallel paths in her life.
Don't eat the f***ing toothpicks. It's not only conventional wisdom, it's a way of life. It's also the motto of Lupe Situ Tacos, the restaurant co-owned by veteran rock drummer Lupe Flores. The tacos at Lupe's are deep fried, and there's no possible way to keep them closed long enough to cook without weaving toothpicks into the tortillas. Lupe Situ Tacos has signage, reminders on the menus, and even an animatronic parrot pre-programmed with an array of messages, including the restaurant's most important one: don't eat the f***ing toothpicks. Yet still, there are people who have managed to encounter accidents from consuming sharp wooden objects, even when they're repeatedly told otherwise. Thankfully, there is a medical center a few blocks away from Lupe Situ Tacos, which is located on the corner of Vernon and historic Ballard Avenue. The restaurant and its attached bar are decorated immaculately with bright colors, floral patterns on the tabletops, and an aesthetic that's clearly indebted to the style of American traditional tattoo art. On a visit to Lupe's, Flores described a conversation she had with 2 employees of Swedish Hospital who had dinner at the restaurant.
Like the other day, these 2 super cute ladies come in and they get food and they sit down. And they were like, everything was delicious. And the toothpicks are really obvious. I don't know what the deal is. And I was like, oh, did you read our 1-star reviews or whatever? And she goes, no, we work at Swedish. And ever since you opened, people are coming in with toothpicks lodged in their esophagus, their small intestines. I was like, oh my God, please. I was like, are you joking? Please tell me you're joking. And she was like, no, but she's like, but it's so obvious and you tell us and there's signs everywhere. And I was like, that's not good though. And she's like, oh honey, you don't want to know the stuff we find in people's bodies. That's nothing. She's like, you're fine.
Before a big part of her life's work came from reminding people that toothpicks are not edible, Flores was already well known as a fixture in Seattle's rock scene. Whether it's for the heavy metal band Tacos, or the locally beloved alternative rock trio Wild Powwers, Flores' powerful drumming gives these bands a heaviness that would be hard to come by otherwise. Wild Powwers released their 5th album, aptly titled Pop Hits and Total Bummers Volume 5, back in July. For a band that gets better with each new album, it's not a stretch to say that this is the best Wild Powwers album yet. Not just because the melodies are more irresistible than ever, or because the production makes the songs feel like they're being sent into the sky like airplanes.
I felt you coming just the other day. You were lost, but somehow calling.
The greatness of Pop Hits and Total Bummers Volume 5 also lies in Flores' drumming. The songs make more room for her to stretch her legs, figuratively, of course. There are also spots where Flores is given her own space to shine, like on album highlight, Sam's Song. For many, opening a restaurant would be the culmination of an entire life's work. And for Flores, it sort of was. But she makes it clear that music is her passion in life, and having this vibrant, beautiful eatery is just a fun way to pay the bills.
A lot of people see this place, which obviously, like, I've put my heart and soul and so much time and money into this place, but they're like, oh, this is your dream. And I'm like, no, actually my dream is playing Wembley Stadium. That's my dream.
For someone who was such an accomplished and dedicated musician, you'd think that Flores was playing around with drumsticks from an early age. But when I spoke to her in the gorgeous back bar of Lupe Situ Tacos, she said that wasn't the case. In thinking about this place, I think about how, as a lifelong music person, the two biggest things that inspire my memory are music and food. And so what came first for you? Was it the music or the food?
No, it was definitely food. Music was out of pure need because it was way later. There was no music in my life growing up. Like, I feel like a lot of musicians are like, oh, I sang whatever in church, or my parents always had music. There was literally no music. There has always been food.
On every menu at Lupe Situ Tacos, the backstory of how this restaurant was established is printed on the bottom. It starts with the restaurant's namesake, Lupe Situ.
So Situ is Arabic for grandma. Her name was Dolores Flores, and she was Lebanese-Mexican. And I grew up when I was real young in Florida, which is where all my extended family lived, like 18 family members regularly hanging out and having dinner in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I grew up there in that environment, and it was just normal to have it be like constantly loud and full of food. Like, there was no music, but you just yell as a way of talking in my family.
Flores was one of 13 grandchildren who grew up together in Jacksonville. And very early on in life, she was chosen by her grandmother to carry on a certain tradition.
And when I was 3, it was my earliest memory, I think, one of my earliest. Situ pulled me aside and she was like, you're going to be the next Situ. You can play, but then I'm going to need you to come back to the kitchen and you're going to, she decided for some reason I was the one who was going to learn all of the, recipes and, the culture and all.
Flores remembers very clearly what the environment was like in her Situ's kitchen.
So I would sit around with her and all of, my tias, my aunties, who were not actually related to me. They were just other Arabic and Mexican women. And they would just sit there and speak in, Arabic and Spanish and talk mad I remember gossiping from so young, talking about, who cheated on who and, mafia people. And, I'm not going to name names, but they sound like they're from The Sopranos. And I'd be they started out picking the leaves off the parsley and cilantro. That was the first thing I was allowed to do when I was 3. I had to spend all this time watching and learning and picking off leaves forever until I was allowed to do that. And then I was allowed to do that, and it was baby steps, until I got to a point where she died when I was 17. And at that point, that's kind of when I took the reins and was because my mom, so Situ's my mom's mom, and she also cooks, but she also had a more than full-time job raising us and putting us through school and all these things. And so she did an impatient version of cooking because she didn't have the time, And so then when I was 17, I kind of was we kind of just switched roles. And now I cook for the whole family, for my parents and everybody. So, yeah.
While Flores was becoming the new Situ after her grandmother's passing, she quite literally dreamt of being a drummer.
I think I was 17. I had a dream. This is going to sound hippie as, it is hippie as but I had a dream about playing drums on stage. And I went out to Fremont Drum Shop, which I don't know if it's still there. I mean, this was over 20, 30, I don't know. I'm 42, 17. You do the math. A long ass time ago. And I just went and got a djembe because I was like, oh, this is how I'll start. And I just started like playing percussion. And
Flores didn't think much about the responsibility of being anointed the new Situ, essentially the person who cooks meals for the whole family, when she was younger. But it did finally hit her years later when she opened up Lupe Situ Tacos.
It has never struck me as being a heavy thing until I opened this place. And now I'm like, my overhead is like more money, double what I've ever had in my bank account on a monthly basis. So that's the part that's heavy to me now. But like the responsibility of cooking and upholding like my culture, like my mom and all the women in my family are always like, never forget who you are, where you come from. That's been instilled in me since birth, and all of us since birth. And so I take that really seriously, and I'm also like very proud, and I feel very lucky to have that connection and to be able to share it with people. And like,
it took a global health crisis to inspire Flores to go from cooking for her family to opening a restaurant of her own, which features her grandma, or Situ's, taco recipe.
There was a global pandemic, and I lost my shit, and I got a divorce. I went on my divorce road trips, and I was like, all right, I'm losing it. And I do know that like Situ tacos are something people have historically loved in my life. Like I make them for special occasions for my friends, and I was just craving connection so bad because everyone was so isolated on purpose. And I was like, I gotta do something. Like I need to be around people, and I'm dying inside. And so I started making these tacos and doing deliveries and dropping them out like masked on people's doorsteps, dropping off deliveries, and just put it on my Instagram stories. And people were just like, I was selling out immediate, like in a half hour. And so then I started doing pop-ups, which is how
From there, she enlisted a business partner. They went from a space in Belltown's Jupiter Bar to their own space in Ballard, a space that Flores says has been financially solvent since she was dropping off orders on people's doorsteps.
We've been profitable since we started at every single stage of this business, even now, which is shocking when I think about the money that we're paying. I just take off 2 zeros. So I take off 2 zeros of what I owe, and I take off 2 zeros of what I make, and then I'm like, okay, it's sort of okay. Like, I think we're okay, but I actually have no idea. I'm like, well, I'm paying my bills and my employees. Hopefully we'll keep that up.
Ultimately, Flores wants Lupe Situ Tacos to be able to run smoothly without having to be there full-time plus, behind the counter, in the kitchen, and sometimes behind the bar.
Right now, there is no balance, and I barely sleep. But I'm hoping, my goal is to be able to have this place be mostly passive income. I want to be like the somewhat boozy restaurant owner that comes in and like buys shots for all my friends, makes the soups, because I'm very passionate about my soups, and then have the rest of my staff know how to do all of my quote-unquote recipes, which are not written down. It's just like me teaching you how to cook, which I think we're well on our way. Like having a predominantly female staff, we have a very connected, familial, like, it feels like family. It's very sweet, and I trust them, and I trust them with how I cook and my culture and how I was raised, and so I'm teaching all those people that. And I'm hoping to get to a point where we're making enough business that I can have them just work the shifts. I can come in and take shots and make soup. And it will also allow me to go on tour. That's how. I'm trying to make it so that I can leave this place for, 4 to 6 weeks, go play music as much as I can, and it'll be fine. And like,
Flores
so far, so
suffers
good.
from the
Like,
same struggle as most highly functioning, ambitious people. The fact that there is simply not enough time in the day to get everything done. She still plays drums along with overseeing every aspect of the restaurant. Thankfully, she has a capable business partner and a handful of cooks so that she doesn't have to spend every waking moment there. But between Lupe Situ Tacos and the band she plays drums for, the only way to do both is to give up the very literal dream of getting a full night's sleep. But there is no either or for Flores. Her business is thriving, and playing drums is her passion.
I'm going to forever play drums. But as far as like me thinking I'm gonna make it, I kind of like, I mean, I'm not like a 15-year-old YouTube star. I don't know how to TikTok. Like, whatever. I'm just gonna keep playing with my friends, and it's fun, and just keep having fun. And hopefully I'll have more time for that sooner than later. But I am making a lot of time. Hopefully it'll be more time. Hopefully that'll get a little more even soon and be less food, more music, but we're getting there.
For KEXP, I'm Martin Douglas.
And that was A Deeper Listen. Next week on the show, we'll hear from two sisters who left their day jobs around the pandemic to focus on their Seattle band and open up a vintage clothing business together. They now make more than they did working their corporate desk jobs.
We had spent years working, like being at work by 8 a.m., like
50
just,
hours
like,
a week.
making sure we had health insurance, making sure we were putting in those 50 hours, just trying to climb these corporate ladders. Like, oh, okay, I'm a coordinator. Now I'm a manager. Okay, now what's the next step? Like, what am I chasing? It was all consuming. Once we opened up the shop and we realized this is something that we could do, it just felt like, wow, we get to reclaim our time.
That's next time on A Deeper Listen. Now, before you go, I wanted to thank everyone who gave during KEXP's Spring Fund Drive last week. It was a big success. KEXP is able to be an independent, listener-supported radio station that also puts out podcasts like A Deeper Listen because of those who give. Listeners are our most important source of income for us. You can still give at kexp.org/deeper and check out the thank you gifts while you're there. You can also help support KEXP and A Deeper Listen for free by subscribing to this podcast, rating it, sharing an episode with a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way as well. And most of all, thanks for taking a deeper listen.